joining me now, we've got retired top cop, Mike Neville. You served as the Metropolitan Police.
I was, Lee, yeah.
Forensic detective.
I was, yes. Images. I dealt with images, catching people through CCTV, or I use human super recognisers who never forget faces.
Because we're talking now, I think Stan was talking about facial recognition as well. How's that going to work if you've got a balaclava on?
Not very well, because if you go to the airport, the viewers go to the airport, you have to stand there, you have to look at it, and sometimes it fails then. But what I know is that I work with the University of Greenwich, and the people can recognise other people just by their eyes, so it doesn't matter if you've got a balaclava on. So humans are much better still than machines.
Yeah, because that does wind me up at the airports when you're putting your passport down and looking in that screen there. Takes about 10 minutes, and then some bloke walks along and says, come on through. Yeah. What a waste of time that is.
Well, it's supposed to save time, and of course it doesn't. It's not very good at Asian and black faces either, because it's trained on white faces.
But is this, Mike, Big Brother creeping into society, or is it a good thing?
I don't like the idea of it being on the streets. So if you're, a football match or a sports event or concert, and they deploy facial recognition, I think the only time they should ever be able to do that is if there's a terrorist on the loose, some child kidnapper said he's going to snatch a child that day, something absolutely very, very serious.
So there's a time and a place for it, like you say, terrorist attacks at some of these arenas and stuff like that. If you've got a pop concert or a big sporting event, it's okay to use it then.
If it's for the right reasons, the most serious reasons. I think most people, if they got robbed in the street and the police found a CCTV image of the person who'd done it, they'd expect the police to run that across the mugshots and see if that person existed. But I think scanning across thousands and thousands of faces, unless it's for the most serious thing, isn't right.
But some people would say, Mike, that if you've done nothing wrong, or you're not going to do anything wrong, then you've nothing to fear.
But I suppose everybody's got the chat, like if somebody's having an affair, somebody's got a dark secret, somebody's telling folk they support Notts County instead of Notts Forest, or whatever secret they are.
Nottingham Forest.
Oh, all that's all. But if they've got a secret, they've got a right to be in secret. Yeah. We don't need, it's all right saying, have you done nothing wrong? But my mother used to say, if everybody had to write the worst secret on the forehead, no one would leave the house.
Well, that's true. So 28 years as a copper, 5 years in the army, you've done your public service, but you must have seen some massive changes in our police force works over the years.
I did. I mean, the key thing for me was like the military service bit. When I joined up in 89 at Hendon, you have a big parade, like a military parade, and everybody stands in these smart tunics like they used to wear the police. And you could see them in the Army or the Air Force or whatever, because they had medals, normally Northern Ireland and things like that. And half the people had medals, and half the senior officers at Scotland Yard were ex-military as well. So they acted as a counterbalance to the sort of student-type degrees. No, that's gone. I went back to Hendon. I think there was a 60 front rank, and I saw one set of medals. And I don't think there's any senior officer in the Met now who served in the military. And that really turns the culture to the point where, when it was under the Commissioner Hogan Howe, apparently he said, they don't want ex-military. And you can see that throughout. And they're trying to say, we must have 50% women in the police, but 95% of criminals are men. Crime is not an equal opportunities employee, and these are often violent men who need to be got hold of.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, I've always said, if you're in a spot of bother in town on a Friday night, you want a big strapping 6'2" Bobby coming along to get you out of that hole, if you like, not some box-ticking woke.
This is what they've done, you see. But on the other side of the coin, when I had an undercover unit, and I found women are very good at wheedling information out of men. Men are daft. They'll tell women things.
Men are daft?
They are daft. And I know myself I'm
daft.
Yeah, well, I'm daft. But they'll tell women things they'll never tell another man. And women are very good at getting information like that. Yeah. But when I sort of said, look, I want to guarantee I've always got a female officer on this team, I thought I couldn't do that. Not that. So they try and make everybody the same, like 1984, wearing sackcloth and, but they're not. Men and women are different. Yeah. They've got different attributes and different skills and different weaknesses, and they're not. The police don't use that.
But surely, Mark, you've got some sympathy for the coppers on the front line these days. We saw the incident in Manchester Airport just a few weeks ago when, the video footage emerged. It looked like the police officer had gone over the top. But then when we saw the images from before the incident, it for me, I thought he was within his rights in the heat of the moment to sort those two criminals out.
Well, it was brutal. The assault on the two female officers was brutal. The two female officers were taken out with 2 punches. Now, with the kick in the head thing, the police officer will have to explain that.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, if you go over the top, what you hand the victim cards to the offenders.
Yeah.
And I think if that hadn't have happened, those two would have been charged very, very quickly. At the moment, they've not even been charged. Yeah. I don't understand that, because the video evidence shows clearly the violence that they set on the police.
Surely a quick phone call to the CPS, quick video, charge them.
Absolutely. People say, oh, there might be other evidence. Well, how many angles? We've got all the evidence. There's all that CCTV cameras, people filming it. Yeah. Why those two haven't been charged? I mean, we're seeing now people being put in prison from the riots, and that's a good thing. Swift justice is good. It sends out the right message. But people are rightly asking the question, how come those two from Manchester Airport have not been locked up, and all these characters have been locked up?
And why?
Well, I suggest it's two-tier policing.
There's the key, you see. So we've heard this over the past couple of weeks, and this is stemmed from Downing Street last week, when Sir Keir Starmer made this, what I think was an awful speech. I think it's the most divisive speech I've ever heard from a Prime Minister.
Absolutely.
And when we see the escalation in violence over the past week, I think, you know what, Sir Keir, a lot of this is on you.
Yeah, I think that division, I was shocked by that. And I've been speaking about this two-tier policing for the last several years. I mean, we saw it with, Black Lives Matter, Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, against anti-vaxxers and Millwall Football Club. What I would say is, if anybody doesn't agree with there is two-tier policing, go to the Notting Hill Carnival at the end of this month, and you'll see people openly smoking drugs. They'll be doing this twerking dancing with female officers, which in the past has been classified as sexual assault.
Yeah, on that point, Mike, if I went and did that to a woman in the street, I'd get arrested for that.
What I was going to say, Lee, is exactly that. Although, if you smoke drugs openly, twerk with WPCs or whatever else you do, if you did that going to a Millwall football match, you would be dealt with in a ruthless manner. So when they say there's not two-tier policing, try that there.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you like to be a copper these days, Mike? So I'm looking at you. You're of a certain age, a mature man. You've done your 28 years. As a young PC now entering the police force, what would be different?
Well, the trouble is these days, everything's on film. The moment something happens, people are being scrutinised. Everybody's put, me and you remember, you had to have a video camera. Now everybody's got a mobile phone. They can video everything. So every small action an officer takes is scrutinised. There's more and more CCTV. They're bombarded with woke agendas before they even start, and they're recruiting people. Like, the training's different. So when I went, Hendon was like a military establishment. I left Londonderry in the army to Hendon. There's a drill sergeant who's ex-guardsman marching people around. Now it's all universities discussing it, and what's this and that. So I think half the police officers think stop and search is racist. They're not taught to be proactive. You've got...
But stop and search is not racist. I hate this nonsense, Mike, because if you go into some parts of London where it's predominantly black youths on an estate, and you search, 20 lads in one night, most of them are going to be black. That's not racist. If you come to Ashfield on my council estate and stop 20 young lads, they're all going to be white.
But I agree. But there's more to it than that, in the sense the police can't help who commits crime. No. So if you look at the stabbings in London, 60% of murders by stabbing in London is by young black men. Often the victims are young black men. But young black men are 2% of London's population. No. The black population of London is about 13-15%. But so cut out all the women, because they're not stabbing anybody. Yeah. Cut out the old, the mature and the young. Yeah. And you end up with 2% committing 60% of the crime. Now, as a young officer, you're confronted with this, but then you're worried, if I stop and search the wrong person, or they haven't got a knife, then you might lose your job. So the officer thinks, well, if I don't do anything, no one's going to criticise me.
But we keep getting told that we need more police on the beat, more police officers. But surely if the whole culture is wrong within the police force, then extra numbers don't make any difference.
I agree. And what they've done as well is a senior officer was speaking to me about this, is they've taken away all the experience. So when I started, you go on the shift, the relief as they called it, and there'd be officers on there with 20 years service driving those cars, who knew how to deal with things, knew how to sort things out, and a bit of presence and confidence. Now, if you've got 5 years, you're a veteran.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, that's a fantastic conversation, that is, mate. Good. I need to get you back on the show, because I could talk about common sense coppering all night long. But look, that's brilliant from Mike.